My name is Steven. This is Rodney.
Hi.
We are sitting in front of a camera, mostly because we're both terrified of sitting and speaking to a camera. Rodney, can you tell me what's happening right now? What's the internal dialogue?
The internal dialogue for me is I feel my fingers tingling. And, so that's not too bad. I've had a lot worse before. But the whole reason why I'm here is, like what Steven said, is to get used to being in front of the camera, but also breaking through fear. And I'm looking forward to this. And that kind of just came from a concept that you came up with, which was 2020, right?
Yeah. So I was listening to a podcast by Seth Godin, and he basically was telling one of the listeners that if you want to get better at being in front of a camera, you should probably just do it. And might as well do it for 20 days, about 20 minutes, nice even numbers, sounds good. And so here we go, this is day number 1. And we figured what better if we're afraid of doing it than just talking about what we're afraid of. Over the next 19 episodes, we'll be talking about some fear factors. So as far as like what are some of the statistics about fear, maybe some of our personal stories with like how we became fearful, like from our childhood, how we identified some of those triggers, and then hopefully get some people on to share with us really, about how they overcame fear.
So what's going on with you, Steven? How are you feeling?
So just whenever I feel fear, it usually affects my stomach, and I can feel it like in my heart. I don't want to say I have palpitations because that sounds like I have like a medical issue, but it's more just like, the heart starts pounding, a little bit like fluttering, the stomach starts going like, whoa, what are we doing?
Yeah. How does it feel right now?
Right now I feel actually pretty okay. Like my mouth hasn't gone dry.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I stutter over my words faster. I've been known to speak really quickly, which is odd because I'm normally a slow speaker. And I get fidgety, just do stuff with my fingers.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I have so many different cues of when I'm nervous that it's kind of sad.
So where's the sadness right now?
The sadness is right now is that even if you are afraid of something, you don't have to like live in being afraid of something, right? You get to like come up with a plan. You get to say like, hey, Rodney, we're both afraid of the same thing. Let's do something about it. And let's like try not to be afraid of it. Or at least if we're afraid of it, we're going to be like, well, I did something about it.
Right.
Because you're like saying yesterday, it's just better to just like, it's like you're celebrating over the fact that you had a form of rejection, right?
I did celebrate. And I was rejected. I can't remember what I was rejected about. Let's see. What was that? What was the issue?
It was like a Facebook message or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Right?
All right. So basically, can I just get this story real quick?
Go ahead.
Burn a couple minutes here. So there was someone that I haven't seen in a while, like over a year. And, the guy and the girl thing, most people, they have a Facebook thing up. It's for fun. There's a certain kind of like protocol, I guess, like a culture with Facebook. But I just actually felt like personal messaging for the first time because I hadn't messaged her before. But I did know her from church and seeing her in various places. And I just said, hey, how are you doing? I haven't seen you around. Where have you been? Went to a certain event where she normally would be, but she wasn't. People said that she hadn't been around, so I was just kind of concerned, and I reached out. And from that action, she blocked me. And it's like, this is like 7th grade stuff, but I was thinking about it. I'm like, wow, I just was being concerned, seeing how she was doing, and she had no comment, and boom, blocked me right there. And I'm like, wow, that was kind of like a little rejection. And I think normally I would just say, man, what a bummer, we were friends, and I was rejected on this Facebook block. But I thought about it, I'm like, because I did something that's different outside of the culture and the norm, I felt like I actually made a difference. Because really, I was really just kind of concerned. I'm like, hey, how are you doing? Like, what's up? And so she wasn't interested in I guess relating to me that way over Facebook, and boom, you're out of the club. You're out, and but it made me feel good in the sense that, from what I guess I understand is that, when you do stuff in life that maybe people don't like, I'm doing it out of a good heart and good intention, and I get criticized for it or cut out or rejected for it, it actually does show that I'm doing something meaningful.
Yeah.
You know,
You're
as
actually
opposed, yeah.
you took a step, you're proactive, you like allowed yourself to be rejected instead of just like, you know, keeping everything inside, right?
Yeah, just doing the norm, like, hey, everybody, I'm so great on my Facebook, everything's perfect, all my pictures are beautiful, and, you know, just try to relate in a real way.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people do. I mean, that was just my way, I guess, on an individual level.
Yeah.
But it was, normally would have been rejection, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you'd probably be crushed and just feel terrible about yourself.
I almost didn't make it out to work today. No, but really, I kind of celebrate it. You're right.
Yeah. So.
Which is breaking free.
And partly there's that conversation of celebrating failure that you're like, you know what, why don't we do something that's even more proactive, like the next step, which led to this idea of, well, let's sit in front of a camera for 20 minutes and talk about fear.
For 20 days.
For 20 days.
Thankfully, it's not 20 days straight, right?
Right. What? All right, well, time check.
Let's do time check.
We are at almost 7 minutes.
Yeah.
So we have 13 minutes to go. So maybe, since this is intro, and people might eventually watch this once we're famous, as, you know, people who face fears, maybe tell about ourselves.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. So, you might not necessarily think of me as someone that's like had to deal with like a ton of fear. Like I have a background as a military officer. So I was in the Navy for 6 years. I graduated from the Naval Academy, top of my class. I'm kind of used to just going for things that seem scary. You know, like I've been skydiving. I've climbed Kilimanjaro. You know, I've done a bunch of different things that could seem as scary, and the truth is that during most of it, I was pretty terrified. I fortunately and thankfully didn't let it stop me, but at the same time, I also maybe didn't do it in the best way possible because I was doing it with like white knuckles and just trying to drag myself through it with sheer force of will, and sometimes I did it and sometimes I didn't. And it's just kind of looking back on that, as far as, even though I did a lot of cool things, how much more fun would it have been if I didn't do it despite myself, but did it rather as far as like, no, this is exciting. This is something that, sure, I don't know the outcome, but it's something that's like creating life. It's something that's creating risk, something that is creating growth, something that I can have fun with. So that's a little bit more of my background. So leading up to that today, even though I'm out of the military and doing less things that are risky per se, I still notice that internally I still deal with a lot of fear and just this possibly feeling like maybe I'm holding myself back from things that I'd like to do, or maybe the things that would be good for me to do for my growth. So,
what do you think fear is?
That is a good question. Fear is because it's like, how do you say fear without using the word fear? It's like, well, fear is being afraid. Fear is being scared. Fear is seeing something that you want to do and knowing that you could fail at it and receive pain from it if it doesn't work out, right? Because it could be like, I could see a relationship that I want, but I could know the pain that could come from it. I could see a job opportunity that I want, but also know the pain that I might experience from not getting it, or even in getting it by failing at it. So maybe it's just like fear could be an aversion of future pain.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Or instant pain.
Or instant pain. The right now, like, oh, I got kicked in the gut pain. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I thought it was interesting how you said failure, because I thought that, you know, I think being afraid of failure is something that's taught, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, kids fail all the time. Yeah. But they don't know that it's supposed to be shameful.
Exactly.
It's only until you associate that to pain later on in life, I guess. So I thought that was really interesting. Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely, you don't want to feel a painful situation. So all of a sudden there's this visceral response of heart beating faster and you want to run, fight or flight, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Because I mean, like, as a kid and you learn how to walk, you fall and it's painful, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're afraid of it, right? You're not afraid of that pain. So I guess that's an interesting question. What do you think causes the that fear of pain? Do you remember like what time when you started being afraid of pain versus when you weren't?
Yeah, I can think of right now. Like, I grew up in a very kind of a harsh environment, so verbally harsh at least. So if I did something wrong, could get the wrath of criticism or yelling or something like that. So then I associated doing something wrong with harshness, which as a little kid I was afraid of.
Yeah.
Especially with adults are so much bigger, and so I can immediately think of that.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. In performance background, like you don't do this, you don't perform, you don't get the A, you don't do this or that, then I get a lot of negative feedback, which is painful.
Yeah.
Especially from people that you love.
That's true. Well, Rodney actually has a pretty remarkable background. Would you mind sharing it real quick? The brief outline.
What, like in respect to what?
Just your life, kind of how I did with
some very unremarkable background too.
Huh?
So in respect to like.
Or just like the high points. I shared I was in the Navy and like.
Okay.
Who is Rodney Gaboya?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. But I think like just feeding off of performance issues and things like that, I would always pursue things that would help me be a standout. And so I think just from my earliest, I guess things that I've been performing at to give me identity would be tennis. So I competed in tennis at a very young age, since 8 years old, and did the 6-7 days a week, working out several hours a day, competing at a very high level, eventually going into college sports, and I was All-American in college, NCAA. I was working for very top people, playing with professionals. I've worked out and worked professionally with people who are top in the world, national champions, world champions, things like that. So that gave me an identity of being, that gave me like a self-esteem and things like that. However, if I stepped out of that, then my identity, I would lose my identity, and everything else would be very, very scary. So I'd only kind of stay in that kind of realm. And I ended up, actually, even though I went to business school and law school, I always ended up with the backdrop of being a tennis pro because it was a comfortable place for me. And I would be afraid of stepping out of that, taking risks, because I was afraid to fail. I didn't have that freedom to fail, freedom to learn, have that learning curve, not really being known or respected or anything like that, which is really what I needed to do, which I'm doing now, because I don't want to spend the rest of my life in a fear-based environment. Yeah. So, which probably leads up to where you were at with me 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, I was hiking in the forest, and I was talking to God or meditating or whatever you call it. For me, it's prayer, and I'm praying and I'm asking God, how this has been a really good year for me, but I want to finish this year well. So what can I do to finish this year well? And immediately I got 3 responses in my heart that I knew that was really significant for me to have my next breakthrough, to what we're talking about. And they were all fear-based. The deepest fears I could possibly think of. And which I know wasn't for me, because, we don't think about, I don't know, that's not something that I would normally think about.
Absolutely.
Because they were so deep.
You don't dwell on your worst fears.
No. Especially when a serene hiking environment, right?
Yeah,
where
so
you're actually
beautiful.
enjoying
Think
myself.
about what terrifies me. Yeah.
So the number one was I needed to talk to my father about all those issues, all the hurts, all the pains. And not only that, just all the ways that I've hurt him, even that he didn't know I was doing things dishonoring, disrespectful, hurtful towards him. And then also talk to him about all the hurts in my life. And to me, that's like that was the scariest thing I could think of. The second one was that I was going to sing in front of a lot of people, which
Yeah.
because you saw it. I got invited up to
Not
Fire
only
and
sing
Glory.
in front of people, but sing in front of a live streaming among thousands of people.
Yeah,
prophetically.
so that was really scary. So I didn't even know that. It just came in my heart, but that happened actually the very next weekend.
Yeah.
So, and then the third one was the job change. And that was the thing about stepping out of my career, the easy, confident thing that I could do, into something new. And all three of those happened like within a couple months. And we were just friends during that time, getting to know each other as friends more and more. And so you saw it all, pretty much. You helped me get my job.
Yeah, yeah.
So you saw every one of those.
Yeah, and it was exciting. It was just super encouraging because it's like you meet this new person and he's just all about like facing his fears, and it's like, wow, that's inspiring because like what am I doing to face my fears? And so it's been super cool walking, with Rodney through that season, and just also get inspired to like do stuff on my own as far as, all right, whether it's relationally. I think shortly after that, one of my fears is talking to a woman that I'm attracted to. And so I remember, I think a couple months after, Rodney was telling me about all these success stories that he had. A woman that I was interested in was just talking to me like, hey, so who are you interested in? Are you dating anyone? And I just told her straight out, well, I'm interested in you. And again, like that fear, you could just feel like the heart rate just like spiked. We were eating a lunch and just my stomach just like knotted up. My mouth went dry, but I still said it, and I sat there and walked through that. And it's just, a lot of it's just because I got to see how Rodney just faced some of his most terrifying, worst fears. And, well, he's still alive, so.
That's right.
Couldn't have been that bad, right?
Yeah. Not only alive, but like having like major breakthroughs.
Yeah.
In the last 2 years since then.
And that's the biggest thing. Like, not only did he face it, but like those were catalysts for the growth that he'd been looking for like years, right? And that's what it sounded like. Is that this wasn't just small breakthrough. This was like, it got you into like this major leadership role at work. It like brought forth some kind of like the start of family reconciliation. Got over any different fears about past hurts. So
yeah, and that was like all the foundation to really realizing that I can have a dream, big vision, be a world changer, and not just compromise anymore, not just settle for less, like really go for it all, everything. And that's what that's really what I'm all about right now, which is why we're doing this, because I realized that I was scared to be in front of crowds and people and cameras, and we get to do this together again.
Yeah.
Right? Part
Absolutely.
2.
So, well, we have about a minute and a half left. So
It's all you.
It's all me? All right. So I would just say that the challenge to ourselves is to do something that's scary for 20 days, to not only develop a skill, but also to kind of numb that nerve which says you should be terrified speaking to a camera and talking with one of your best friends, which sounds absurd when you just say it out loud, but you still feel it inside. So the challenge for anyone watching would be, pick something that you're terrified of, find a friend to do it with, and then do it 20 times, whether it's 20 days in a row, 20 days over a year, but maybe just do what Rodney did, have a hike, go for a walk, figure out what it is that is keeping you from that next stage of growth, and formulate a plan with your community on how you're going to tackle it, because, well, so far it's been worth it.
Yeah, and not just anything you're afraid of, right? I mean, it's probably something that...
Well, something that's maybe like related to like something you want to grow in. So, for example, we want to grow in our ability to speak to an audience, whether it's live or on a camera or recorded. And so we came up with a plan of not only facing a fear, but also developing a skill towards something that will be of a future benefit for us. So if that's public speaking, maybe you get some friends together and you just practice talking to a room, and you just kind of gradually build on that. If it's talking to a stranger, maybe you go to a coffee shop and you and a friend introduce yourself to a stranger in line, and just do that 20 different times. It could be whatever it looks like for you, just something that's fear-based, but also maybe holding you back from what you want to step into.
What could be some other things that are kind of like examples?
Let's see, other examples.
How about like maybe some people, going to a gym or a class just to start losing weight?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or
yeah, maybe you get a friend to go with you in your first class, or maybe you just need to get yourself in the door and just go ahead and sign up. There's all sorts of different steps we can be taking. It could be weight loss. It could be talking to people. It could be
friends.
Making friends.
Yeah.
It could even be a business venture. Maybe you just need to start writing out a business plan and figure out, all right, here's the different steps I'm going to take. So it could be
networking. That's what you've been doing.
Yeah, that's another fear that I've been facing, is just reaching out to random people on LinkedIn, not in a creepy way, but just in a business way. And just saying like, hey, I'd love to chat with you, get a coffee, learn about your story, and, just so that I can grow, because I always look at it from the perspective that I can learn something from anyone. Everyone has something to offer because everyone has a unique perspective of the world. And when you realize that, it makes it a lot more interesting to talk to people, because you realize that they have something that could help me, and I have something that could help them. So it's mutually beneficial.
Cool. We got our 20, right?
We have our 20. We're actually at 22 minutes.
Boom.
All right. Well,
all right.
Peace,
That's
y'all.
a wrap.
Talk to you later. All right, cool. All right, we're on film. This is Facing Our Fears 1.0. All right.
This is exciting.
This is exciting. I can feel the heart just pumping. We're just like doing it. All right.
So I have a question. Do we actually start timing this? How do we really know we did 20 minutes?
That is an excellent question, and I think it's something that we'll find out at the end.
That was something for pre-production.
Yeah. So I guess just
I see you have your phone there, so you want to take a look real quick?
Yeah.
All right,
So
we'll start
I think
there.
we're probably at like 2 minutes.
18 left.